Hi everyone, and welcome to our document automation roundtable. We'll just give a few more minutes before we get started just to see if we get any more attendees. So if you bear with us for 2 to 3 minutes, we'll get going then. Thank you. Okay, I still see a few more people jumping on, but I don't want to waste too much time because I know we've got a lot of stuff to get through today. So just to go back to the start, welcome to our document automation roundtable, where we'll be exploring how document automation could help transform your business processes and the client and candidate experience. My name's Lauren. I'll be handing over to Martin and our panelists in a few minutes to get this session started. But before I do that, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping points. So our roundtable today will run for around 30 minutes. We have time for a Q&A at the end as well. Please feel free to pop any questions you have during today's session into the chat, and we'll cover these at the end. And thank you to anyone who's already submitted a question ahead of today. I'll also run through those at the end. The whole session will be recorded from beginning to end, so don't worry if you need to drop out during the webinar. Everyone who's registered will receive the recording in the next day or so, and you're free to share that with colleagues as well as you wish. One last thing before we get started is a quick background on who Kylo are. So for anyone who's joining us for the first time or needs a refresher, Kylo are your bullhorn specialists. Our goal is to help you get more out of bullhorn. Combined, we have over 100 years of experience with bullhorn, working with and providing solutions for companies of all sizes and complexities. We've completed over 200 bullhorn implementations, and our products get over 50,000 interactions a month. So I'll now pass over to Martin Wishart, who's one of our team leads here at Kylo. He's a real passion for helping our clients to streamline and automate their bullhorn processes. So you're in good hands today.
Thank you, Lauren. So before we get into the discussion and the conversation we've got planned today, I'll give a quick introduction to the important people on the call who are our panelists. So starting off, we've got Matthew Banbury. He started his life as employee number 4 as consultant in engineering with Pioneer Selection. And to quote Matthew, he's done every job in the company over the last 12 years as the business has grew to be 50 employees, and he's now their operations director. Secondly, we've got Steph O'Connor, who is currently responsible for the Enterprise Centre of Recruitment Excellence at Manpower Group UK, where she's been for over 5 years. Her team delivers end-to-end recruitment services across all their brands for the professional MSP, RPO, and PSL clients. And last but not least, we've got John Blaze from Jonathan Lee Recruitment, where he's been now for 18 years. And John started as a manufacturing consultant. He then went on to manage various offices for Jonathan Lee before returning back to the head office to manage recruitment operations for the group. So that's who we've got. And one thing all of our panelists have in common is that they use Kyle Lawson docs within Bullhorn, so you may hear reference to that as we talk through our conversations. You still with us, Matthew?
Sorry, just had everybody leaving the office making a lot of noise. Sorry.
So without further ado, we'll get straight into it and kick off with the first question. So the first topic to discuss is how important to your company is automation in 2020 and going forwards? And if we could start with Matthew.
Okay, yeah, well, it's very, very important. To be honest, we've been talking about automation and kind of digitization for probably about the last 2 years, but obviously as a result of what's going on more recently, this has kind of been pushed up to the top of the list. Two main reasons for that. One is obviously costs. So we obviously get a downward pressure on fees, but the cost of people keeps going up. So we need a way to try and streamline that a bit. The other being kind of buyer behavior and expectations. So clients don't want to print contracts, sign them and send them back anymore. People want instant updates, and candidates nowadays we're finding are quite happy to work with automation and self-service. So they're actually happier to work with, a cheaper solution for us.
Okay, great. Steph.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's face it, as Matthew said, we're all under increased pressure to do everything faster, cheaper and better than ever before. And so you can't, in order to remain competitive, you can't achieve that unless you introduce automation. So for us, it's a key driving strategy as part of the group, and certainly for the operation that I'm involved in. Key for us is identifying those areas where there's no value in the human interaction, and where we can remove those, remove those tasks from the recruitment process wherever possible, or the support functions. And so, yeah, absolutely, automation is an essential strategy for us as a group.
Okay, and just before we move on, Steph, when we had a quick catch up before, you mentioned you'd recently seen a change in your clients' attitude towards automation. Can you share a little more on your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, I think prior to the last 6-7 months, we had clients that I'm sure we've all had that were absolutely, adamant that this was the process that you had to follow and that there was no deviation was possible, especially if that meant filling in 10,000 different forms and, faxing them across to them, etc. So, we were already having some really frustrating conversations with clients, and we found that just flipped on its head as soon as we went into this situation. All of a sudden, a lot of the automations that we could introduce to clients overnight for them, they were suddenly embracing and really taken on board. So from that perspective, I do think, yeah, I mean, again, Matthew touched on it. Now more than ever, it's at the top of the, the urgent list with regards to, okay, well, what more can we do to interact with our clients and candidates without having to, have any face-to-face interactions, and automate as much as possible.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's great to hear that it's coming from both candidates and clients.
Yes, absolutely.
And John.
Yeah, it's essential to us moving forward. I think, given everything that's going on in the world, I think we've all got to get used to doing more with less over the certainly next few months. And I would imagine that once we've adopted those technologies, we're not going to want to undo them. And I don't think our stakeholders, the clients, candidates, contractors, etc., are going to want us to either. I mean, we've already seen a shift towards clients and candidates wanting to be communicated with in a whole variety of different ways now, and it's becoming less and less your more traditional methods of communication, and that plays right into the hands of automation, and not only for documentation but for database population, database accuracy, all sorts of applications. So it's something we've been doing with documentation, but I can see us now moving forward, taking it to that next level.
Okay, brilliant. Any final points before we move on to the next one?
Nope.
Great. So moving on to question number 2, how are you using document automation, and what are some of the impacts you've seen in the business? So what are you doing today yourselves, and what's the impact you've seen? And again, if we follow the same path, we'll start with Matthew again.
Yeah, we use documentation, document automation quite a lot actually. Probably the top thing we use it for is just creating candidate CVs. After that, maybe terms and conditions. We also use it for sales, for creating kind of personalised marketing brochures that we've kind of set a template up for new prospects. We use it for sending invoices out. They're probably the main things we use it for. What's the impact that that's had? Kind of the main issues we had before we actually adopted Awesome Docs were in relation to time, human error, and data protection. So one instance we used to have is that we'd have 10 people, creating the same CV to send it to 10 different companies, which meant that we'd have the document sat on 10 different computers, which is a bit of a data protection issue. Then we could potentially have 10 different versions of a candidate CV, or formatted slightly differently, which potentially could end up at the same company, or if they were to receive the same ones, they'd say, well, which one's the right CV. We had instances where people were copying and pasting from kind of old invoices just to be a bit quicker, changing the name from one company to the next invoice company. Sometimes they'd send it out with actually the wrong company name on it. We might have the wrong payment terms. Number of cases where we actually didn't even have the right fee on there, which meant we were getting underpaid. And then just the time issue. So on top of all of that, we spent a lot of time creating the doc, but because it was sat on someone's desktop, it meant that it didn't necessarily actually end up in Bullhorn. So we had no visibility as a management team to see if something had been done, and just the whole old process of creating a document, then opening it, editing it, saving it to your desktop, and then saving it back to Bullhorn meant that it was either really time inefficient or people just didn't do it. So that's had an absolutely massive effect on our business since we took it on, and we've had it for probably about 4 or 5 years now, and we couldn't operate in Bullhorn without it.
Brilliant, it's good to hear, and it's something that we actually hear quite a lot from clients, but almost we not overlook, but also get how powerful it is with Awesome Docs to actually have the document stored straight into Bullhorn so easily. We've had feedback from yourselves, obviously, and some other clients in the previous panel we worked with. So it's good to hear the feedback from you then. Steph.
Yeah, a similar theme, I guess, really. So we started using Awesome Docs back in 2018 as soon as we took on board Bullhorn, really, because we could see straight away the benefit it was going to bring us. Ours is for contract submission and issuing to our candidates. So we were operating on a incredibly painfully manual and, quite frankly, boring administrative process that just invited human error and required endless checking. So we wanted to eradicate that from the business as soon as we could. So we started working with Awesome Docs. From a numbers perspective, we're probably generating around about 15,000 new contracts and contract extensions a year. And we were able to identify that they were taking to edit, open up, edit, save it, wherever you were saving it. It was taking about 10 minutes per document. So obviously when we worked that out, it was working out that we were going to be able to potentially save 50 hours a week. And we did. The changeover with Awesome Docs was phenomenal from our perspective. And it came in from a multi different factors. I mean, the candidate experience, the feedback we were getting from candidates straight away was really positive. Also, the turnaround time from getting a signed contract back, we were 5 days before this, and then we got it down to less than 4 hours, and that was virtually immediate overnight. So, and then as a result of that, obviously, then we had the impact of we had less dropouts. So from a client perspective, that was great. And also we were able to get candidates on site a lot quicker. So we reduced our time to hire. So from our point of view, introduction of Awesome Docs was a roaring success for our business, and we're continuing to work with Kylo on how we can develop those offerings and integrate different ways of working with Awesome Docs for different areas of the processes.
Brilliant, and Steph, I'm going to pick on you again. I'm sorry, because you said some great things when we caught up, and something you mentioned before is that bringing in document automation actually meant you were able to change people's roles within the business, which gave them a kind of, I guess, more fulfilling role, call it that. I think there's a lot of fear of automation taking over at times, so it's really great that you're able to do that.
It's very true. Yeah, I think it's very easy to focus purely on what your client and candidate experience is going to, how that's going to be improved. But because we've got, you know, quite a large administrative department that, as I say, was, you know, there's no joy in editing and, you know, adding data into documents and saving them and emailing them out and all the rest of it. So what we found as well is that as an administrative function, it had quite a high, you know, a low retention level. And as a benefit of this, because we were able to automate it, they were able to then focus on much more value added roles, which was talking to the candidates, and that was more interesting for them. So it meant we could almost restructure the role definition of our contractor care administrators and give them that, you know, much more interesting task to be able to do. And we've actually seen retention levels improve. So yeah, it was that was an unexpected benefit that we got off the back of it, but obviously very welcome.
Brilliant, thank you. And John?
Yeah, I mean, we've been using Awesome Docs from day one of having Bullhorn, probably 3.5 years ago, something like that. So we initially used it for CV formatting, which transformed the way we produce CVs. I think similar to Steph's story there, it was very manual, prone to errors. You know, timescales were elongated. And now we know that if we get the training right at the start, we show people how to use the system properly. The Kylo integration for creating CVs just really does take all the hard work out of it. And also you're able to present them in such a way that they're consistent. It's a consistent format, so everybody does it the same way. You don't get all these variations that some clients like, some clients don't like. And we're able to continually improve that format as well by making tweaks here and there as we identify opportunities to improve the documents. We've also now started using it for getting sign off on any variation to our standard terms. So we have what we call a variation to terms document, which has hyperlinks into our standard terms. We create where we negotiate something different with a client, which, let's face it, most clients want something different from your standard terms. We can capture that in a variation to terms document, send it to them through Awesome Docs with a DocuSign link. They can click that DocuSign, send it straight back, and that definitely has. Well, first of all, it's improved our response rate to variation to term documents, where we were sending them as PDFs, asking them to sign them, scan them, return them. You know, nobody wants to be doing that anymore. So one click or 2 clicks and it's returned. And we have a full auditable record as well as to, you know, exactly what clients have agreed to. If for whatever reason further down the line there's either a disagreement, dispute, or whatever it may be. We also use Awesome Docs for non-disclosure agreements with candidates. So we work with a lot of clients that in the technology space where they want their technology to be protected. However, obviously throughout the recruitment process, you've got to release various bits of information relating to that technology. And the candidates naturally get to see some of it through that interview process as well. So we do tailored NDAs and we do standard NDAs, and we send those out through Awesome Docs, and we also get new versions of those documents put together by Kylo as well. So that service where we can say to you, oh, we need a variation to this document, Martin, can you help us out? That's proved to be very useful as well.
Yeah, always here to help.
Yeah.
The final, you've almost had all the notes I had here for you, John, but the final thing you spoke about previously was also assignment confirmations and how you've adapted that into your process as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. So we also, once we've placed a candidate, we use a different system for onboarding with candidates. So that's something we've had for a while now. But in terms of getting the client acceptance for that contract, we have a document which we call our client confirmation letter, which we send to the client again via Awesome Docs with a DocuSign link in it, and that really just confirms the specific terms for that contract, like charge rate, notice period, who the line manager is, and anything else that's contract specific that needs to be recorded somewhere in that document. And again, we found that's a great auditable trail as well, which, you know, it was very sporadic as to whether we'd get those returned to us previously. And of course, you can't say to candidates, oh, you can't start on Monday because the client hasn't sent the confirmation of terms, confirmation of contract letter back. So we were hanging out there a little bit sometimes, but now we've tightened that up, and it's much better.
Brilliant. Some great points again. I think a lot of it comes back to creating and having Bullhorn as that one source of truth for all, really. You know, your data and bringing the documents in there as well have proven to be quite powerful for you guys. Right, we've got 2 more questions to go through, so we'll fire on to the next one. So question number 3 is, what are the key points that someone trying to get approval on this should include in their pitch? So if we're, for document automation, what's the key points they should take to the board to get approval to bring this type of process on board? And
yeah, I'd probably piggyback Steph's comment earlier, actually, just about the amount of time that they were spending doing a certain task. So something I did here was like a time and motion study. So I'd literally sat down, timed myself doing each task, and then just times that over the number of people we had doing that task in the business. And when you put it all together, it starts to be, as Steph said, 50 hours. I think we were looking at something like 20 hours a month per person. So that ended up being, tens of thousands of pounds a year, which meant that we could rather than an administrator, we could probably have another sales consultant, massively, who were obviously much more productive from a sales point of view. And then we're not wasting this. Also, not really it's not a very exciting job going down and doing admin. So I definitely just sit down and just work that out. What are you really paying for someone to, sit and create an invoice over and over again, or create terms, or phone someone up to chase up, something to be returned.
yeah, good point. Steph?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably all aware that budgets are very tight at the moment. Companies haven't got pots of money sat around waiting for investment, but I generally think in instances like this, the business case builds itself, and the data, you just let the data speak for itself. As long as you can really demonstrate how many documents you're processing, how long that's taking, equivalent per year of your FTE, etc., like Matthew's just said. And don't forget to take into account those additional benefits that you get as a value add. So, if you've not got as many dropouts, what does that mean for you from a cost perspective? You're saving your costs on advertising. You're not going back out to market for candidates. If you're reducing your time to hire, then again, what GP benefit are you getting by having a candidate on site a week before? And certainly from our perspective, once we'd built those things into a business case, it was just, there was just no way that you could possibly justify not investing in it.
Good. And John, anything more to add?
Yeah, I mean, all of those, absolutely valid points, and I wouldn't disagree with any of what Matt and Steph have said there. But rather than say the same thing, I'd also add that there's a perception element to this as well, I think, amongst those people that are receiving the documents, in that it's almost becoming expected now that you've got a level of automation. If you send a document to a client that they've got to print off and sign and scan in and return, it's, they're just thinking, well, we don't work this way anymore. They're adopting these levels of automation themselves, and I think if you're going to keep pace with your clients, keep pace with the needs of the candidate population and your contractors, to me, it's essential. You can't afford not to do it nowadays, I think, because you are going to get low levels of buy-in, and this really improves on that. And again, the reason auditing is so important to us, because we're an ISO 9001 approved business, and when the auditors come in to have a look at how we're operating, they sit down with individuals around the business. It's so easy for the individuals to say, yeah, there you go, there's the document, it's stored in Bullhorn in exactly the right place, and they're not searching piles of paper on their desk to find that printout that someone sent back to them, or It really does. It really, as well as the cost element, it's the perception side of it for me, and that real traceability element. You know, if you get a client that disputes what's been agreed, you can literally just put your finger on the document and there it is in front of you.
Yeah, I think that on your point about, you know, the printing and scanning and sending back scenario, I think that's quite a big ask today for a contractor. You know, somebody who's out on site finishing one job, trying to get to the next one.
Yeah.
Looking for trying to. No, not everyone has a printer or scanner anymore. You know, so
Exactly.
Yeah.
just read it on their phone and press a button. They can, you know, move on to the next job.
Yeah, I think the other important point is that sometimes you might get someone receive a document that requires a signature, and a lot of the time some people are nervous to sign a document, whereas they're much happier to click a document because it sort of gets it out there in tray. They might be less tempted to push it up the tree to get those terms and conditions agreed than they would be if there's a click button to say, oh yeah, okay, we'll agree to that, and off you go. You just get on with it then.
Yeah. Okay, some good points again, guys, and we'll move on to the kind of final question of the conversation before we get into some questions from the viewers. So, what is one piece of practical advice you would give to someone starting out in the world of document automation? It's maybe a bit of lessons learned. What have you guys learned from implementing this into your business?
So really, honestly, when I first bought Awesome Docs, I tried to create all of the templates myself, because I thought it'd be more cost effective. But in retrospect, I should have just paid the experts to get it done, which is what I ended up doing anyway. It's just wasted some time because they're just really good at it. They know what they're doing. They're sending out, like, you know, I think we were told that we sent out their millionth document. So if they're sending out that many documents to many customers, they know what a good document should look like, and they'll put it together with you. So it's pulling all the right information out of all the right fields in Bullhorn, and they'll just get it right the first time. Other than that, just try and sit down and plan out every document that you'll need, or you think you're going to need. Because again, if you get it all done from the beginning, you can just, you know, forget that you've even got it. I probably haven't spent any time on it for 2.5 years, but I know that every day I'm still getting a return on it because I'm just saving time all the time from people not doing basic jobs. So that's what I'd say.
Good point. And Steph.
Yeah, okay. So from our side of things, I think one of the biggest learnings we had when we first started off was make sure you understand your processes in depth and that you've gone to that minute detail, so that I think I was guilty of going into it originally with probably some preconceived ideas of what I thought where we needed automation. And actually, once we'd involved people from the business and had working groups asking, you know, the actual operators, what does your world look like today? Where are your pains? And in a perfect world, what could that look like? We came out with things that we weren't necessarily expecting, and that gave us then the ability to prioritize what we were going to go for first. And because of that, I think the business felt like we'd sought their opinion, you know, and our teams felt valued, and so therefore, when we expected them to embrace the change, they were already advocates of it, and so it was a lot easier for us to implement those changes. So from my point of view, I would say, yeah, make sure you got your priorities correct and involve your people all the way through the process.
I think that's a really good point to kind of involve the people that, you know, are feeling the pain day to day on doing the task.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And Matthew, maybe going back to your point, you mentioned about you know, the time it took you to do those templates yourself. Maybe you should have done a bit of a time analysis on how long that would take and what it would cost you.
Yeah, what I should have done, yeah.
And John.
Yeah, I mean, the first bit of practical advice I would give is yes, there's a cost associated with it. Everyone, as Steph pointed out earlier, everyone's, you know, got their fists tightly around the purse strings at the moment. But what I would say is just go for it. I mean, this is definitely a game changer, and it will deliver benefits to your business, absolutely. But secondly is standardize the way you approach it. So get your training right, get some standard documentation in place that people can go to as a go-to guide that says step by step, this is how you do it, because there are several screens you have to go through. And sometimes you can forget what to do in some of the screens if you're not using it that frequently. And I've found it really useful since we've been back off lockdown to be able to just go into those how-to guides that we've developed and just literally go through it, and it's minutes to get the documentation sorted then. But other than that, yeah, I think it's very intuitive and it just works.
Excellent, guys. I think we've done quite well for time. So unless anyone's got any kind of closing comments on that final question or anything we've spoken about at all, we can pass it over to Lauren for some questions.
Great. Thank you, Martin. So we've had a few questions that have come in to me during the time. We'll try to cover as much of these as we can. And there's a couple that we had submitted in up to the run up to this as well. So the first one is, and I think a couple of you have touched upon this question, but if we could look at it again. So through document automation, how much time have you saved? That's a tough question, I know.
I think this is maybe one that we could have, if we have time to go through the three of us again, go to Matthew and give a bit of an indication of what time you saved. Matthew lost us.
He seems to have frozen.
Well, we can move on. Steph, are you able to?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. As I said earlier, I think, you know, once we'd identified that we could save about 50 hours a month from the introduction of the Awesome Docs, and because we'd done that, as I talked about earlier, the minute detail of going into the processes, it was an accurate forecast. So that is actually what we ended up saving. So based on your volume, you know, you can really achieve some huge numbers from that perspective to reinvest them back in your business.
It's good to hear the analysis is gone true.
Yep.
John.
Yeah, I mean, it is a difficult question to answer, but I would estimate that we've at least, if we just take CV formatting alone, we've at least halved the time it takes to produce a CV, if not even more, to be honest. Because once you've populated your database, which, you know, most of that's automatic nowadays in terms of parsing from CVs, once you've got your fields populated, you don't need to do any more. It's as simple as that. And you know, I would say at least half, if not, you know, taking 25% of the time it used to produce a CV.
Brilliant. And Matthew.
Sorry, actually, I got disconnected. Sorry, so I didn't hear the question.
The question was, Lauren, do you have it there?
Yeah, so a little bit of a tough question to maybe narrow down, Matthew, but through document automation, how much time do you think you have saved?
That's a great question. I thought listening to Steph and John there, that might have been something along those lines. I was trying to dig a presentation out actually that I did for many years ago, but I dread to think, you know, hundreds, thousands of hours. We're currently looking at automating some of our document automation. So we're actually dealing with Kylo to automate the formatting of CVs. So you don't even have to. So as soon as the CV hits our database, that it just puts it onto our kind of letter header, resaves the file, so the consultant actually has to do less. So anybody that buys this product, a little bit of a win for you if you can get involved with that as well. We went through it quite recently. We we're still spending 12 hours a week per person on tasks that a human doesn't really need to do, with the worst case being about 20 hours a week. So if you think about what you could do if your consultant had 50% more time to go and speak to candidates and clients, that's kind of our main focus at the moment. So exactly where it is on document automation, I'm not 100% sure kind of off the cuff, but it's, you know, it's quite a sizable amount. Even if you think to template a CV, one of our instances that if you're going to format a CV, put it on a nice letterhead, etc., might take someone 10 to 15 minutes. We work in an industry where we're dealing very often with the same candidate for multiple different jobs, but there might be different consultants working with them. So just in that case, it wouldn't be unheard of for a candidate to have to submit a CV to 5 different people, for them to spend 15 minutes each, and you spent an hour or 5-6 times as much as you should have done. So times that by, you know, we might deal with 3,000 or 4,000 candidates a month. Spread that over a year. You know, like, I'm not that good at maths, but that's a lot of time. And if it's all just saved back in one record, then, you know, you're winning.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you.
Great.
Any more?
Okay, so we'll do another question. So I'll pass to you, Martin, to kind of go around the group again, but who handles the document automation in your business?
Oh, that's a good one.
So I'm not sure if I'm disconnected again, but I can't hear anyone.
If we go to Steph first, because I know that you do it probably differently to Matt or John, actually.
Yeah,
actually, and then we'll go to someone else.
Yeah, well, it's a good point actually, because that's something I hadn't mentioned earlier. So I'm glad the question was asked now, because another thing that came out of us adopting Bullhorn and the various different marketplace partners that we're now working with to, you know, add additional benefits to the business, whether it's through automation or introduction of chatbots, etc., etc. So is that we've actually created a role for a business process manager. And he's now responsible across the group for ensuring that we are looking at all of these different things, ensuring that we've got all of the up-to-date documentation, that we've considered the right automations, and that we're looking at constantly moving and challenging ourselves to what else can we do with it. So yeah, we've got a dedicated function within that, which we're very lucky to have.
Brilliant. And we'll go to John, since I don't think Matthew heard the question. So we'll go to John.
Okay.
As you heard first.
Yeah, so in a similar way, we have a business part, what we call a business partner for recruitment operations in our business, who looks after Bullhorn admin and Kylo admin, as well as other marketplace partner admin, and she would be responsible for at least ascertaining the need, doing the initial work on finding out exactly what the requirement is. We would then decide whether it was something we could do ourselves or whether we needed some expertise from Kylo, and follow whichever path we decided was necessary. Sometimes a document might be a tweak of another document, or it might be something we can do fairly quickly. Other times we might need some assistance from Kylo to build something from scratch. So it just depends, really. And then in terms of actually using the documents, obviously everyone's using them. You know, it's once you release it, people really do buy into it.
So you have the individual users within Bullhorn have access to do it themselves.
Yeah, so we've got actually 2 people in our business. So I mentioned the business partner. We also have one of our recruitment assistants in one of the teams is very, very good at this sort of stuff. And she's just shown a natural ability for being able to create documents, do a bit of HTML where necessary, that sort of thing. And so we've got the 2 of them and they work very well together. So yeah, it's good to have more than one head sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And do we have time to go to Matthew as well, since we've answered that too? The question was, who handles the document automation in your business?
Yeah, that's me. So
that's what I thought.
I've tried to learn it from scratch. Still not that good with it, but luckily Kylo support's very good.
Brilliant. Anything more, Lauren?
I think that's all we'll have time to cover today. There are a couple of outstanding questions, and we'll get back to people directly on those. Apologies, we haven't had time to get to everyone today. So on that note, thank you, Martin, Steph, Matthew, and John, and everyone for attending. We'll share the recording around, so you'll find the recording in your inbox probably tomorrow, that you can refer back to or share with your colleagues. If you do have any questions at all, or would like any further information on how Kylo can help you with document automation or anything else Bullhorn related, you can always visit our website, kylopartners.com, and contact us via there as well. So yeah, thanks again to everyone, and I'll look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye all.
Bye.